Hello, cozy friends. How are we doing? Y'all, buckle in today. It's gonna be a long one. We're gonna yap for a while. So go get a cozy little blankie, go get a cozy little drink, grab a little snack. Because a year ago now, if you watched my 2025 goals video, I mentioned another creator, Uncarly, who now for the past 2 years has made a video rating and talking about every movie that they've watched during the past year. And so it was a very big goal of mine this year to download the Letterboxd app to track every single movie that I was watching, give it a little rating, and then at the end of the year, recap everything, maybe revisit some of the movies that I had forgotten about, that I didn't even remember watching. Because we got a little bit like we live in a society in that video when I talked about this goal of like we consume media in like such a fast-paced environment that I often forget like every single movie that I've seen until it like comes up again on like my Netflix or something where I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even remember watching that video. How fun of me. So I'm very proud to say that this entire year I stuck to that goal. I, according to Letterboxd, have rated 52 movies this year, which is honestly more than I thought I would do. That's at least one movie a week. And you'll see that there's some months where I watch like 2, some months where I watch like 8. But nonetheless, we stuck to this goal and I am so excited to make this video. A few caveats going into this video though. I am not qualified to rate movies, to rank movies. I studied film as a minor in college. Don't get it twisted, a film bro, that does not make. Because I'm also a classic rewatcher, I don't go out to the movies very often unless it's a movie I like really want to see, and probably one that I know I'll really like, but I'm also very easily pleased. So I don't think I gave many films lower than like 3.5 stars, because like I said, I rewatch a lot of the things. I already know what I'm gonna like, and the ones that I didn't like, I still was like, this was an enjoyable experience enough. And of course, the last caveat is this was just for fun. This was more to track the movies than to actually rate them in any specific way. But in rating them, I also thought it'd be fun to kind of look back and see why I rated something the way I did, what I was doing that day, how I felt that day, maybe external factors that were plaguing my mind while watching the movies. So with all of that out of the way, let's jump in and go way back to the beginning of the year, where on January 3rd, I was still feeling the holiday vibes. I wanted to watch a Christmas movie that didn't strictly feel like one of the classics, you know what I mean? Like, I watched this movie growing up, but it wasn't like a staple that we turn on every year. So the kind of post-Christmas die down, but still wanting some of those vibes, led me to watch Love Actually, which I rated 5 stars. Now, I guess one more caveat to like all of this video is a bunch of these I obviously watched almost 12 months ago. I don't remember what I was doing yesterday, let alone 12 months ago. So I've also had time since I rated them right after I watched them, so I wouldn't forget. I've had time to think about, the context that it was made, the ways that I feel about it after processing the whole movie, just some more external factors, and I think this is a great one to start with that caveat, because this movie, if you haven't seen it, has aged like milk. This movie is so problematic in the year 2025, almost 2026, that it is so about like how people look, the gender roles that exist back in the early 2000s, the very straight heteronormative roles that kind of relationships had in the early 2000s. This movie did not age well. Is it still a great movie that I love watching? Absolutely. Do I recommend it to people who haven't watched it and grew up with it? Absolutely not. But in that kind of like early to mid 2000s era where like all the stories combine and like intertwine and all these things, I'm a sucker for those. I eat those up. One of my favorite sitcoms is Modern Family, where like the whole shtick is that they're all interconnected. They all get into each other's business and all the storylines interconnect. That is this movie, but Christmas, and it's fantastic. Then after that, on January 26th, I watched The Wild Robot, I think for the first time. This might have been my second time watching it. I've at least watched it twice now, and I've rated it 5 stars because of course I did. This is also a great example of why I wanted to have this goal and why I wanted to track it, because this movie was so good when it came out. This movie was so hyped. It won a bunch of awards. Like, it deserved the praise that it got, but I fully kind of forgot that I watched it this year. Not because anything that the movie did, because everything that I do with the one brain cell that is in my brain. But this movie is so beautiful. This movie is so gorgeous. It is animated so perfectly. This movie is about like an adorable little like Big Hero 6 Wall-E sort of robot who gets lost on the way to like help out families. That's like its purpose, if you will. So it gets dropped in the woods accidentally. It like tries to find its purpose again with no humans around. And then it finds this little animal, which we won't talk about maybe how it came to be alone, but it became alone. And so this robot becomes its like paternal figure, and it's just this like beautiful story about like chosen family, found family, what it means to parent something. It's just gorgeous, it's beautiful, it's amazing, it's show-stopping, you know what I mean? Like, it's giving all the things it needs to give. I really don't have anything more to say about it, other than it's amazing. Then apparently I didn't have any other Valentine's Day plans, because the day after, on February 15th, I watched Miss Congeniality for the I don't know how many nth time, but this also was a 5-star rating. Are you seeing a pattern of how easily entertained and how easily pleased I am at almost all the movies that I've watched this year? Now, like almost every movie on this list, if you have not watched this by now, if you have not graced yourself with the presence of early 2000s Sandra Bullock doing what she does best, do yourself a favor and go watch this movie. This movie, I just looked, it came out in the year 2000, so it has, again, those very, like, nostalgic 2000s, maybe didn't age, like, the best. Like, it still has all those themes of, like, feminism and women empowerment, and like all that kind of stuff, but kind of in that like early 2000s sort of sense where it's still playing into the gender roles. It's still kind of like, ooh, but you're still a woman. But it is so funny. It's such a great time because the CIA or the FBI, I don't really remember which one, not that it really matters, but they learned that like the Miss USA pageant is going to be like infiltrated in some way, and like I think someone might die, or like who's ever crowned is going to do something. I'm not explaining this very well, but so they need an agent who would like fit in some way, and so that's where we get some of that like early 2000s of like none of the girls are pretty enough to be believable in a Miss USA pageant. Is it a perfect premise? No, not at all. Because apparently the only female agent that's good enough for this job is Sandra Bullock. But Sandra Bullock is this like rough and tumble, tomboyish, like all-strength character who doesn't fit in with like the typical girl. She's not like other girls. So she has a really hard time fitting in. And then, of course, you get the early 2000s makeover montage where they make her pretty and beauty standards and all that other jazz to eventually get to the finals, win it, uncover the mysteries, all the fun things. It's honestly a great time. I'm not selling this very well because of kind of those like early 2000s misogynistic views, but it's more I don't want to be blind to those issues and those problems that the early 2000s and like before movies have. But I also know that, like, these are great movies if you watch them when you were younger, if you grew up with them. They're a great time. They're an entertaining time nonetheless. Now I feel like we can go on to a less problematic movie where I don't have to defend the premise, given the situation that it was made in, because on February 22nd, I watched Encanto, which I think leading up to this, I was listening to some of, like, my musical playlists that I do on Spotify, and a bunch of these songs came on, and I was doing a little boogie when I was listening to them. I was singing every single word. I know these songs by heart, only having watched this movie like once or twice. I absolutely love these songs. Every one of these songs is a banger. This is a no-skip album for me, so of course I rated it 5 stars as well. I feel like the majority of people have watched this movie, so I won't go too much into the premise, but really all you need to understand about this is what I've already pointed out. The songs are 10 out of 10s. Of course, any time that I say this movie or think about this movie, the one song that comes to mind is We Don't Talk About Bruno. It's the one that's most catchy. It's the one that's currently playing inside of my head. But truly, every single one of these songs is so well done. It matches each character so beautifully. And it's just such like a sweet and kind of bittersweet story about like family and the roles that are assigned to us in a family, the amount of like pressure we might feel as a certain family member or the lack thereof if we're not being treated fairly, but then kind of reframing it as like a new mindset of the role that you might step into. So that one easily, again, I'll probably rewatch it in the next couple of weeks because now I'm being reminded that it exists, and now I'm being reminded that all the songs are not currently running through my brain. Then after that, looking at March, I watched a decent amount of movies that month, so it looks like I was really just into my movie-going era, trying to start this goal off right and watching as many as I could. Because on March 9th, I watched Erin Brockovich, which I've seen clips of around TikTok, which is I think why I watched this movie, because it also came out in the year 2000. I like know of her name, I kind of know the story, but I never really watched it, never like really passed the things that I was interested in or the things that I was watching. But after watching this, I gave it a 4 stars, and I'm going to be completely real, I didn't know until later, which you'll see, that I could give things half a stars, so I'm gonna actually change this to 4.5 stars, because this one I didn't know that I would like as much as I did. You know, I was very much expecting by today's standards, the formulaic sort of like biopic that is like portrayed by a very well-known actress or actor, where it's just like a nice feel-good story of like an underdog overtaking this like big corporation or like this big bad in some way. And where it is absolutely that, I wasn't expecting the acting that came out of this movie, and also kind of the twists and turns that I went through during this experience. Like, all of what Erin went through during this entire experience could be enough for an entire lifetime. But like, it's so much more than just like, I defeated this big bad and like I got justice for all these people. It's truly about like the community aspect of it and like how good she was at relationship building and like selling herself and all these other things that really made her like a powerhouse of her time. I again think I saw like a few clips on TikTok which prompted me to watch this, because I don't think I would have even known about it or even like would have thought to watch it this year. So thank you, TikTok, for that, because I really enjoyed this one. Now, before I talk about this next movie, it's important to discuss that every month in my Discord community, we have a movie night, and I think at the beginning of the year, it started out with just 1 movie a month, which then at some point I turned into 2 movies a month, so you'll see more of these come later in the year. But these movie nights are where me and my community can just like hang out, have more sense of a community, and we all vote on a movie, usually prompted by a theme that I make up for the month. Whether, you know, it's like Pride Month, so we're watching gay movies, whether it's like Christmas, so we're watching holiday movies, really any theme that I can think of for a month, we've kind of adopted doing a certain theme. So it's not as just like random movies that I thought of just on the spot that I want to watch that I'm forcing everyone else to watch. And these movies that I watch with my community very much also fit the vibe of that nostalgic, like, I know that I'm gonna like them, I know a lot of people have grown up with these, it's just entertainment for entertainment's sake. So on March 10th, we watched Wreck-It Ralph, a fantastic movie about like a villain who doesn't want to be a villain, who kind of overcomes that like classic villain origin story, because you really can't get more like villain than an enemy in a video game. So like, it's a perfect premise. We won't maybe talk about the second one and how it kind of deteriorated in quality, but this first one, it's so sweet. It's such a wholesome little story. It's a really entertaining time. It has a bunch of references to older games, to other games, and just kind of gaming culture in general. And this movie came out in 2012, and I have a very distinct memory of watching this in the theater with my grandmother in Torchy Grove. And I remember Tori and I really loving this movie. We were kind of obsessed with this movie. We thought it was really cute. But I remember looking over and our grandma was asleep for like half of it, like grandparents are for a lot of kids' movies. And then I also have like a very vivid memory of us dancing after the movie was over to, I think, is it an Owl City song? I think it's an Owl City song of like, When Will I See You Again? That still slaps, by the way. That's a great song. But I have a vivid memory of that, of just like dancing in the aisle after that movie was done, just because we were children and had so much energy we didn't know what to do with. So this one is always going to have like a special place in my heart and is a great watch. Then on March 20th, I watched No Hard Feelings, which stars Jennifer Lawrence, and it came out in 2023 on Netflix. Y'all, I don't know what it is about this movie, but I feel like for a lot of people, it's just like a run-of-the-mill comedy movie with a big actress. It didn't like blow expectations out of the water and like win every award. It also didn't like completely flop. But for some reason, I absolutely adore this movie. I think even on March 20th, this was my third time watching it, and I still give it 5 stars. I probably will watch it soon and will still give it 5 stars. I think the two main actors in this movie are so funny and they have such great chemistry. I will always love Jennifer Lawrence. I think her like dry sense of humor and her like comedic timing are really on just like full display here. And again, I don't know why I love this so much, but this one I feel like is one of my like guilty pleasures. But again, I don't know if it's just like the type of comedy and writing that I really enjoy, or if it's the acting or like Jennifer Lawrence or any part of this movie, but I always love watching this movie. It makes me giggle every single time. It is just like an entertaining movie through and through. The day after I watched that, I also rewatched Wicked, which instantly 5 stars. I don't really feel like I have anything to add more than everyone else has added at this point to the first part of Wicked. It's such a great movie. It's one that I will rewatch over and over and over. I think I only watched it 2, maybe 3 times during the year. We'll see when we get further into this list. But the songs from now both parts, but especially the first part, have been in my Spotify all year and will continue to be in my Spotify the upcoming year. And again, I don't really have anything to add. Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande absolutely knock it out of the park. The songs, the singing, the vocals, the acting, everything is just hitting on all cylinders. Then on the 24th of March, I watched The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring for the very first time. Y'all, I might get a lot of hate in the comments for this. I have not watched a Lord of the Rings movie in my entire life. I am a fan of like the Lord of the Rings IP. I know about it. I'm not one of those people who are like, I don't understand it. It's like fantasy and like too much and they're too long, like all of that. I just never got around to them. You know, it's kind of like the people who like never watched Star Wars, never watched like any of those big things that you're like, you've never watched that. And so I made myself and really my community a promise. Because if you didn't know, by I don't know, my title of my username, it's Legolas, and I get asked on stream so much if I'm a Lord of the Rings fan. Because technically my name is a play on the name Legolas from Lord of the Rings, but it really wasn't supposed to be like a direct connection to these movies. It was more just like, it was a funny name. If you haven't heard that story, come over to my Twitch. I'll tell you all about it. I love telling that story. But it was really just supposed to be a play kind of on that, and also talking about my disability. This is the only part of this goal that I didn't stick to, and now I'm being reminded going through this list that I didn't stick to this goal. So I think for 2026, this might be my goal, because I watched the first one. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was a great time. I think later in this list, you might see, I think I started the second part. Again, it wasn't because it was bad. It's not because I don't like the IP or the story or anything. I just don't think I ever was in the mood to watch something that grand, watch something that long, watch something that I really want to pay attention to. And then I think I just kind of forgot about it. Because I know I have a lot of work to do. I need to not only watch the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but then I also need to go back and watch The Hobbit as well. So I have a lot of movies to continue this little series into 2026, but safe to say, I love the first part. It was a great little first part to this. Absolutely, now I'm being reminded that I need to go back and watch the rest. Then it looks like I took a little bit of a break, but we came back for the Discord movie nights. On April 14th, we watched Legally Blonde 2, Red, White, and Blonde. And I think towards the end of 2024 now, which, goodness, feels like 8 years ago, we watched the first Legally Blonde. So I think this movie night's theme was like sequels to ones that we've watched before. And I will say this is probably the lowest one thus far. I rated it 3.5 stars because obviously Legally Blonde is such a great movie. This movie is such a defining like moment in culture from the early 2000s. It's so well done, and this one is very well done. I just didn't think it hit as much as the first one for me. I feel like the premise itself is really good, kind of upping the scale from like getting into Harvard Law School to be potentially with the boyfriend who dumped you and like proving them wrong, proving everyone wrong that like you can be that girl, you can be that person to do all these amazing things while also looking very snatched and slay. But I think where it got me is I feel like the writing in this and some of the jokes kind of just felt like rehashings from the first one. You know, like the writers looked at this and was like, this did very well the first part, let's just recreate that for the second part. So was it still a very good time? Absolutely. I just think it was a little bit less quality than the first one. Then on April 28th, I watched Mamma Mia. I really, again, have no things to add to this movie that have not already been said 1,000 times over. Every one of the songs absolutely hits. The acting, incredible. The relationships, outstanding. The story itself, a little messy, but we're here for the messiness. If you also can't tell by now, I'm an absolute sucker for any musical, and this one I will always turn on no matter what if I just want to have a great time. If I just need an escape to go live with this little family in Greece and just have a great little vacation from the comfort of my own home, I will be watching this. If anyone can look me dead in the eyes and tell me that they're not dancing when Dancing Queen comes on, then you're absolutely lying to me. So this movie will always be great. This movie I will always turn on. 5 out of 5 stars, one of the favorites of the year. And keeping with that same thing of movies that always hit, the day after I apparently was just in this mood to watch something that would make me laugh and feel good, I watched The Devil Wears Prada, which again is another 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, no notes movie. I also saw recently they're making a second part of this, but this movie, and I feel like especially now that I'm getting older, now that I'm in the workforce, now that I am a working corporate girly, this movie hits so much more and so differently, but still slaps in the best way. Like, I'm sorry, but you put Meryl Streep, Anne Hathaway, Emily Blunt, Stanley Tucci all in one movie about a hilarious little editor of like a Vogue style magazine trying to teach Anne Hathaway about fashion. And then again, if we're talking about like the early to mid 2000s sort of movies, kind of trying to break out of that mold of like gender roles and what it means to have gender roles in our society, but like still kind of playing into them to like get to the biggest audience. This one I feel like does it very well, where like, yes, she does have that like little makeover montage. She dresses in the very conventional way that she feels like she should dress. But then by the end, she's like, you know what? I'm looking around. I don't want this life for me. I don't need this life for me. I'm actually gonna bow out. I'm gonna go write boring little news stories of things that I really care about. And Meryl Streep can just continue to design amazing things that I'll find in the fucking bargain bin at Goodwill 8 years later. And it's just, it's such an entertaining and amazing time. It always makes me feel like I know a lot about fashion after I watch it, and I love that for me. Then moving into May, I'm looking at my list for May. I think this is when we started to go to 2 movies a month for my Discord movie night, and this theme for this month I think was like classic animated movies. And so the first one that we watched on May 11th was Kiki's Delivery Service. And even though the theme was classic animated movies, I've actually never watched that. I've been trying to get through a lot of the Studio Ghibli movies because I, again, have just not watched a lot of them. I never really grew up with them. I grew up watching Spirited Away, but I never really like gravitated to the other ones. Again, for whatever reason, I have no idea. This one really surprised me because I feel like the other ones that I've watched, being like My Neighbor Totoro, Spirited Away, Ponyo, like all those I feel like have a lot more stakes involved, and I feel like it gives the stakes pretty early on, even if it's nothing like earth-shattering like My Neighbor Totoro. Like, I don't know, this one obviously has stakes, because like, babe, that's the plot structure. You need to have stakes for a movie for it to literally go anywhere. But this one I feel like is just more of just like a feel-good, like she is just trying to find her own way. She is just trying to find her little way as a little witch, wanting to help out a little town. And it is just like so wholesome, and yes, there still is that like big action set piece at the very end, which I will say made me tear up a little bit, made me cry because it was like, oh my god, will she, won't she? But I just so much want to live and exist in this cute little town where a witch would fly around and give me my mail and deliver mail. So I feel like this one, out of all the ones that I've seen thus far, is just giving like the coziest little like I want to be in this world sort of vibes for me, and it is just beautiful. Then outside of the Discord movie night, on May 25th, I watched Kung Fu Panda 2, which I gave 5 stars. Growing up, I was a sucker for the Kung Fu Panda movies. I was the very like traditional little boy who loved being like a secret agent and who loved like Kung Fu and like all those other things. So seeing these movies with like such great little fighting scenes, such like fun little comedy. Jack Black is amazing in these movies. But this one specifically, I feel like out of all of the ones, even that have come out now, has the best story. Like, the first one is such a wholesome story about Po just finding himself, who he is, what is his role in this team that he was basically just, like, thrown into. An amazing, like, coming into himself sort of story. But this one goes back of, like, who he is and why he is, and it's so beautiful. I think the strongest part of the story and of this movie is also the villain. The villain feels so grand, it feels so big, and it has such like obviously a very direct connection to Po and his story and like who he is and why he is. And then oh my gosh, at the end when they all come together and they like fight the big bad and Po learns all about chi and everything else and like has that little dialogue moment with Shen talking about like how scars heal and like all the, oh my god, it is just fantastic. Anyway, I could talk about that movie for ages. I could do like my own video essay on so many other points that probably so many other people have already made beautifully in their own videos. But we'll move on for now, because on May 30th, we watched Lilo and Stitch for our second little Discord movie night of classic animated movies. And this was around the time that the live action one came out, which I will say I haven't watched. I probably won't watch it. I've heard not so great things. I know they changed a lot of the story, but this original one, I have probably not watched since I was like 8 years old. It just never was one that like we watched continuously growing up. We watched it like a few times. We watched it here and there when it was on TV, but like we never were fully invested. We never like rewatched it just because we loved it so much. But this movie, oh my gosh, talk about found family. Talk about family in general. Like, talk about Ohana, babe. No one gets left behind, and absolutely we're not leaving this movie behind. This movie is beautifully animated still. It has such a great story. All the emotional beats still absolutely hit. All the comedy bits still absolutely hit. We also have to give a shout out to our transgender non-binary queen, Pleakley, who absolutely steals every scene that they're in. And I just love watching this with my community. We were talking about how good this movie is, how maybe not so great we've heard the live action is, but oh, this one just hit in such a great way. Then in June, our Discord movie night theme was LGBTQ plus movies for Pride Month. We absolutely had to do it. So the first one that we watched was Love, Simon. And y'all, I feel like I sound like a broken record, but this one, you have no idea. And this one was like one of the first, if not the first, openly gay, like big box movie to be backed by a major studio. And so I actually saw this trailer when I was watching another movie with my dad. And of course, 2018, like kind of freshly out Little Ryan, absolutely ate this trailer up. I was fully obsessed just by the trailer. I didn't even know it was a book until about a week after I saw this trailer. So then I instantly went out later that day. I bought the book, I read the book, absolutely fell in love with the story, with the premise, with the representation of all of it. Like, I was so annoyingly obsessed with this book and this movie. So much so, actually, that I not only bought the book when it first came out, I rebought the movie cover of this book, but then I also found a pre-screening in my state of Colorado to go to with a friend where we bought matching Love Simon shirts. I watched it probably like 6 or 7 times when it first came out. And a really cute story too is I actually like was fully obsessed with it to the point that I emailed Becky to be like, oh my gosh, this movie has like changed the trajectory of my life. The representation, like the story, is something that I never got growing up. You know, like growing up in the early 2000s, we never got cute little gay romance books. And like, I'm so happy that we're getting more of those books now. I'm so happy that other people are growing up with a lot of those books and a lot of the media that we're getting right now. Like, I don't want to get too much on my soapbox, but I love that we're getting more of those stories now, and we still need a lot more. But I emailed Becky fully understanding that I probably would not get a response. This was right before the movie came out. This was when she was getting so much attention for this book, the movie, everything about it. But like 2 months later, to my surprise, she emailed me back with the cutest note that I still have in my email. It's such a sweet part of like who I am and why I love media and TV and movies and like all the things that I do. But I hadn't seen this movie because I feel like I burnt myself out of it with how much I talked about it, how much I read it, how much I watched it. But watching it with everybody in the Discord, hearing all their stories about like how great this movie was when it came out, even if it is like very simple by today's standards, even if it is very much of that like best case scenario sort of story about coming out and finding yourself, it hits so good. It just made me like re-fall in love with every aspect of it again. Like the comedy, absolutely 10 out of 10. The romance, absolutely 10 out of 10. The drama, absolutely 10 out of 10. I love this movie, and I'm just so glad that we watched it again so I can re-fall in love with this story yet again. Then on June 22nd, I guess we were just in the movie vibes because I watched 2 movies that day. The first one being the second part of our little Pride Month Discord movie night theme, which was Booksmart, which I gave 4.5 stars. Don't know why I didn't give it the full 5. I guess I was feeling a little stingy. Probably looking back at like the little list of all 5-star movies, I was like, I have to be different. I can't rate all these 5 stars, so apparently I was feeling different that day. This one I won't touch on too much because it has a lot of those same beats of like when this came out, it really just hit with me. The type of humor was my humor. The type of writing was just like so quick-witted and so smart. The story itself is just beautiful. It's about finding yourself, coming into yourself, like the expectations of what it means to be like good in school and go to a good college and like have a good time with all of it. So I absolutely love this movie. I feel like probably why I didn't give it the full 5 is because like we were so obsessed with Love Simon as a community, and especially myself, that like that movie just hit so differently when we watched it all together, that this one also absolutely hit. Just maybe a little less. So I think that's why I was like, I'm gonna be a little different. I'm not gonna rate it the full 5 stars. But then the same day, I watched The Hunger Games and gave it 4 stars. But this one actually has a fun story behind it because I watch these movies almost every year. I go back to these movies. These were books that I grew up just absolutely also loving. Like, these were my young adult dystopian movies through and through. But I learned one of our students who we work with had never seen a Hunger Games movie a day in her life. So when Hunger Games obsessed Ryan learned about this, I said, no, we're changing that right now. So we'll get to the other parts later down in this list because we did end up watching all the parts. Don't you worry. I did my duty as a Hunger Games enthusiast, making my friend watch all these movies. This one I feel like though I gave 4 stars. Again, not because it's bad, because I've been rating everything 5 stars. It's honestly just the first part. I've been trying to sit here and think of like why I might have rated it differently than the other ones, but I think that's really it. It's just the first one. We're getting all the groundwork done. We're establishing who the characters are. That's it. There's no big other reason. Moving into July, on July 3rd, I think like a week after it came out, I watched K-pop Demon Hunters. I feel like, again, I don't really need to say anything other than it's K-pop Demon Hunters. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It's one of my favorites of the year. This movie, I feel like, came out of nowhere, and now we have confirmation that it truly came out of nowhere. Because I remember hearing around like Thanksgiving that a lot of the toys for like the Christmas time for children weren't gonna be there in time for Christmas because like high up executives didn't think that this movie would do as well as it did. So I don't think they ordered as many toys. Now, that's just what I heard. Whether or not that's true, anyone can correct me in the comments. So I feel like this really did come out of nowhere. But of course, like everybody knows by this point, it's such a well done movie. The music, oh my gosh, it's also been on my Spotify all year round. We've also played it countless times on stream. It's so good. The animation, one of my favorite animation styles that I've seen probably ever. And then the story, it is just so good. It's so wholesome. It's so like intense. It is just everything that you need it to be. So that one is probably in my top 5 of the new ones that I've watched this year. Now, unfortunately, on the other end of things, on July 4th, I watched The Old Guard 2. And now the first one I think came out in like early 2020, and I was really liking it. I grew up watching a lot of like the action thriller sort of movies, and so I knew that I would really like this one. And back in 2020, I was obsessed with this movie. I love this movie. Like the premise, the acting, the fighting, it all was outstanding to me. And so I remember like for the longest time, I would go back and rewatch it and then look up like, are they making a second part? Because they very much set up like a big cliffhanger at the very end. But for the longest time, like all I could find is like, hey, there's a comic series that this is based on, but I wouldn't hold your breath on a second part coming to Netflix anytime soon. So I thought it was just dead in the water. I didn't think anything would happen. And then to my surprise, they came out with a trailer. I was so excited. I was so shocked because after like 5 years of this movie really being talked by like no one, we were finally getting a second part. So I was watching it like the first day it came out. We were so excited for this, but I'm gonna be so real, it was such a letdown and really just did that thing that like kills a lot of like multi-part, like series movies, where this whole movie was basically a setup for the next movie. Which usually I don't mind. Like, we'll get into Mockingjay Part 1. We'll get into, like, a lot of these that have been, like, sequels or, like, multi-part series. But this one, I feel like we just had a lot of exposition thrown at us. We had a lot of new characters just kind of introduced for really no reason other than to be introduced. The world itself got, like, so much bigger with everything that it threw at us, and then really went nowhere for the duration of the movie. Until the very end, where it ended on yet another cliffhanger, setting up the next part. So I don't know, this one I feel like out of all the ones on the list, I probably forgot the most that I watched it because I didn't like it. I might go back and just rewatch it to see if it's actually as bad as I remember it, though I think it probably will be. Because again, I really enjoyed the first part. I was so excited for the second part that I feel like I rated it because I hated it that much. And then the last 2 movies I watched in July were the Discord movie night ones, and I think this theme was similar to a bunch of them, which is just like classic good feel-good movies. So on July 6th, we watched Luca, which I gave 4.5 stars. This movie is so queer-coded. You cannot look me dead in the eyes and tell me that this movie is not a coming out and coming of age movie. Like, watching this through, it's just an incredible story. I love this movie. I feel like it kind of flew under the radar when it first came out, but it's about a little sea creature who goes to land for the first time after seeing a very confident and amazing other friend who is a sea creature go to the land and be like so confident in who they are, explore the little land, and make them feel comfortable in who they actually are, and like overcome bullies and like find their own sense of family and just come to be accepted by this community who didn't usually accept these type of people. Like the entire time that we were watching this, me and my community were like, oh no, this is a gay story, this is a queer story, through and through, and we're fully on board with that. And it's also just like a feel-good summer watch, which I think is why I put it in the poll in July. Because for me, even though it's more emotional and like more intense, it kind of gives me the same vibes as like Mamma Mia, of like, I just want to escape to a beautiful little beach town, just having the time of my life, finding out who I really am. Then on July 24th, we watched Hannah Montana the movie. And I put this in the poll because for the longest time, since I probably was in like college 5 years ago, we don't need to talk about that. Every night when I cook dinner, I watch an old like Disney Channel show from my childhood. A, because now it's a part of like my routine, but I started it because I didn't want to think about what I was watching. I didn't want to have to like fully pay attention to the show that I was watching while I'm cooking dinner. So I just have cycled through like all of the old TV shows that I used to watch, and I've been doing that now almost every night for like 5 or 6 years now. So this was like a multiple rewatch of Hannah Montana. And I was like, you know what? I don't think I have ever seen the movie, or I've seen it once a very long time ago. So let's put it in the poll. And everyone else was like, yes, let's absolutely watch that. I love this movie growing up. And I gave this movie 4 stars because it's very cute. It's very well done. It gives off very much Hannah Montana vibes. And I don't know, I don't want to sit here and like fully critique a movie whose primary demographic at the time was pre-teens, because that's really all that it needs to be. It needs to be a feel-good movie that is just like by the books, very generic. But it really just was that. It didn't do anything wrong. It didn't do anything amazing. It just was. And that's all that it needed to be. So I rated it 4 stars. Then in August, I'm looking at August's list. I think this might be the most amount of movies that I watched in a month, because this one I watched 8 movies. There might be some, I feel like I watched more movies towards the end of the year than the beginning of the year. But we started out the month with The Hunger Games: Catching Fire. I sat down with my friend again and we watched the second part. I did also preface my friend by saying that this, Kung Fu Panda 2, and Shrek 2, I think are the 3 best second parts of a series ever to be made. So this one for me was like top tier in the Hunger Games franchise. I loved this book when I read it. I love this movie. I think it took everything from the first part of the movies and everything from the book and just combined it to make such an amazing movie. It was so good. I loved every second of it. I continue to love every second of it because I've watched it now probably 8 or 9 times. And then on August 10th, I watched Red, White, and Royal Blue. And this was actually a first watch for me, which is crazy. But I think what was stopping me from watching this was everything that I heard about the book and everything that I saw from like the very few trailers or scenes that I knew of the movie. I thought it was going to be like a very by the books, like generic sort of love story of like, ooh, will they, won't they, and like enemies to lovers sort of thing, which I'll eat up any day of the week, especially if it's a queer little love story. Oh, I'm eating it up. And in even watching this movie, when I was thinking about like, oh, what I want to rate it when I do actually rate it after I watch it, for probably like the first half of it, I was like, okay, I'm probably going to rate it like 3.5, maybe 4 stars. Like, it is very much that like generic. It's still very good, very funny. The actors are incredible. They also are very good looking, which also helps. But then this movie very much surprised me by the end of like not doing that like, oh, they've overcome, like these barriers and they now like each other and everything's all happy, all great, all smiles, they ride off into the sunset sort of thing. It really took a turn to be like really intense, really emotional, and like had something to say about like how we treat sort of like celebrity relationships and like the privacy of people in these types of relationships or in queer relationships in general. And I really love that spin and that like way that it took of not just like, oh, they run off into the sunset and they kiss and everything's fine. It like really went in a direction that I wasn't expecting, that I really enjoyed. So I gave this one 5 stars. Again, probably one of my favorites of the year. Then the same day on August 10th, we did our first Discord movie night, and this is when I really started to do like monthly themes and really tailor it to like a specific time of the year or like something that was going on during that month. So this one was obviously like back to school. So our first one was Monsters University, which I gave 4.5 stars. I'm gonna actually change that to 5 stars. And I don't care if 99% of these movies that I'm rating this year are 5 out of 5 stars. This one is so good. I love this movie so much. Like, looking back, a sort of prequel to Monsters, Inc. of them being at college sounds so corny. It sounds so cringy, but they did it so well in this movie. Like the start of Mike and Sully's relationship at college and their dynamics throughout this whole movie of like what it means to be like an underdog going into this and being someone who like basically stepped into this like privileged position coming into school is just so interesting to explore more of. But then again, watching this with the community, and I've heard some of this being thrown around when this movie first came out, my community and I just talked endlessly during this movie about the representation of disability and what this movie either subtly or not so subtly says about like overcoming disabilities in society that like we're set up to fail in. Because quite literally, Mike is told that he is not good enough because of his stature and the things that are preventing him from being like an actual scarer, and how he has to work within the bounds of what he can do and in this system to even be considered on par with these people who have like natural abilities to scare. So this movie is really just getting extra points of why I'm changing it from 4.5 to 5 stars. Then on August 16th, I watched Theater Camp for the second time. If you don't know, because I feel like I didn't even know about this movie when it first came out, I'm pretty sure it came out on Hulu. It might have been in theaters, but this one stars Ben Platt in probably the best movie that I've seen Ben Platt in. Like, I'm a fan enough of Ben Platt. I think he's a great singer. I do think he's not maybe the best in a lot of the movies that he's in, but this one I feel like he's probably the best that he's in because he's playing caricature of like every high school theater teacher that you've ever had, and it is so funny. Like, I was not a theater kid growing up. I was kind of theater adjacent, but I knew a lot of theater kids. I knew that kind of world. I knew a lot of like how they acted and how the teachers acted and how that whole world kind of exists within that bubble. And it makes me like out loud laugh every single time that I've seen it. And like you can definitely add it to that long list that I've been saying of movies that I want to watch soon again, because looking back at this list, I absolutely adore them. Again, I feel like a lot of the movies that I watched this year are ones that a lot of people know. I feel like less people know about this one. So this one, I feel like maybe out of all the ones on this list, or at least the ones so far, is the one that I would recommend watching if you haven't, because I feel like not a lot of people know about this one. Then on August 17th, I watched the Lego Batman movie, also for the first time, because I had a friend who came from out of town to spend the day with me, and we wanted to watch a movie, wanted to get all cozy in our little blankets, wanted to grab a little snack, and just spend a day with each other watching a movie. And so both being rewatchers, we were like, okay, I want to watch a new movie with you. I don't want to spend money to like buy a movie or go out to a movie. So what is a movie that we either haven't seen in a while or that neither of us have seen? So we went through, I don't even know how many movies on, I don't even know how many streaming platforms before we were just like, okay, we have to pick something. It might just be something that one of us has seen, the other person is not. Like, we are running out of time. We've been doing this for way too long. And then we just like stumbled onto the Lego Batman movie and kind of jokingly we're like, but what if? And then finally we're just like, but what if? And so we watched this one, and this one was so funny. Like, I knew this movie was gonna be funny. I knew this movie was gonna be good. I've heard nothing but good things. I've loved the Lego movies. I think their humor is like good enough for children, but also like older people or parents watching it. So this one, honestly, again, it was kind of that like, but what if? So I didn't really think that I would like it as much as I did, but we both were laughing the entire way through. And now we both kind of quote some things to each other from this movie that I think is just amazing. Then on August 29th, my friend and I again sat down for the Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1, and boy, what an experience this is. I feel like when this movie came out, and still to this day, this movie kind of gets a bad rap, kind of like The Old Guard 2, but maybe in a better way because that movie was not good, of like, it just sets everything up for the next movie. It's just kind of a filler movie, it's whatever. Even if it just is setting up for the finale, even if it's setting up for the big ending of this entire series, it is so good. Like, coming from the ending of Catching Fire, again, kind of, yes, setting up what will become, like, the big finale of this entire series, it does it so well while keeping a lot of that tension, keeping a lot of that intensity. It just does it so well. So I did rate it 4 out of 5 stars because, yes, it still is kind of a setup movie, but it is so well done still. It still remains one of my favorite series. And then to end out the month on August 31st, we watched School of Rock, which I gave 4.5 stars. And really the only thing I could think about watching this movie is, why did we keep casting Jack Black into these roles that, for me at least personally, he's kind of become like a parody of himself in a way in a lot of the movies that he's in? Because I feel like he plays that same character that he plays here, of like the, oh, I'm just crazy kooky guy who like doesn't fit in and like marches to the beat of his own drum, pun intended. And look, I'm not hating on Jack Black. I think he's very talented. I think he's very funny. I think he's very good at what he does. But I feel like he's been in so many of these movies doing the same sort of role as this, of just being that like quirky, goofy guy. But I feel like this was one of the first movies that like really showed that kind of goofy, quirky side in such a fun way. Of like, yeah, what if this like random rock and roll guy was the teacher of very like privileged, well-behaved children? And it's so good. So we had the best time as a community, because this was the second one of the Discord like back to school little theme, watching this all together and like singing along to all the songs, seeing all the young actors, like young Miranda Cosgrove in this absolutely ate it up. She absolutely slayed. So seeing this again when we haven't seen it in so many years was just so much fun to all watch together. Then on September 7th, I watched Thunderbolts, which I gave 3.5 stars. It's one of the newer MCU ones, and look, I was a big MCU person. I was an MCU fanboy when I was a teenager. I was watching all of the movies. I watched all the TV shows. Like, I was in to the MCU when I was younger. But I feel like most people, I'm not going to sit here and make like a whole critique on the MCU. I'm not going to go that deep into it. I thought this was a cute enough movie. I thought it was a good enough movie. It didn't really blow my socks away. It didn't really have anything super new to say. I think the kind of underlying, not so subtle themes of like mental health and finding who you are and like coming to terms with who you are was good, but kind of just very surface level-y. So again, I liked it. I didn't love it. It's a decent enough movie with a decent enough cast. Then on September 8th, we watched WALL-E, which I gave 5 stars because since September is my birthday month, the theme for the Discord movie night this month was just my favorite movies. So I'm so glad that we voted on this one, because this is one of my all-time favorite movies in general, but definitely my favorite Pixar Disney movie of all time. I think it's such a sweet story. The little film nerd in me absolutely loves that it's almost all done without any like spoken dialogue. Obviously there's spoken dialogue toward the end of like the humans, and some of the robots you can kind of tell what they're saying. Even with the subtitles sometimes it'll tell you what they're like implied saying. But I just love the story. I think it's beautifully done. Really just like 10 out of 10, no notes, nothing to add. It is just amazing. Then on September 20th, I watched the new Superman movie because it came out on HBO Max. And I will say, when I first watched it, I gave it like 4 stars, I'm pretty sure, but then I brought it down to 2.5, which I know, for me is a big jump because, again, I'm very easily pleased. But I feel like the more that I sat with it, the more I was like, this really was just like nothing. It really just like didn't go anywhere. I know a lot of people loved it. Like, a lot of people were like, they finally did like a good Superman. They finally had like really good writing. They finally had like a good like premise and stuff. For me, it was just like, I feel like the best way to describe it for me is it felt safe. It felt like, how do we do a Superman movie that won't piss off the most amount of people? After all of these superhero movies have come out, how do we do like the best version of a Superman movie? Now, I know this is one of like probably the lowest scores that I've given this year. I still don't think it was like a terrible movie by any means. I don't think it was bad. I just think it was very forgettable. So that one I was also kind of disappointed with, because I do really like superhero movies. Again, huge MCU fan when I was younger. Still really like a lot of those movies, and I do like a lot of the actors that were in it. Again, I just think like the story and the writing were just really safe. And then on the 28th, we watched Pitch Perfect, which I gave 4.5 stars, because this was the second movie in my, like, Ryan's favorite movie sort of poll that we did for the Discord. And this one, again, is one that, like, I loved watching growing up. I've watched it probably, like, 10 to 12 times easily, because it's, like, always on TV after it came out. It was so good when it came out. It was so loved and still is very loved. Like, the writing in it is very good. The song's incredible. I love all the renditions of the songs. I did learn the Cup song when it came out, and I was so annoying with it. Like, it's one of those, like, if you just need a good time, if you just want to escape a little bit, if you want to hear some good songs and some funny jokes, it's a decent time. And I love that for it. And then finally on the 29th, I watched the Bob's Burgers movie, which I gave 4 stars. At the time that I watched this, I was re-watching Bob's Burgers, like, from the start. It was just, like, one of those shows that I've always really liked, but I've never watched, like, all the way through in one sitting. So whenever I just wasn't watching another show, or I just needed something to kind of, like, turn my brain off to, I would watch Bob's Burgers. So I watched up until where the movie, like, is supposed to take place. Even though you can really watch it anytime, I thought it would be kind of fun to see, like, where in the show did it kind of take place. In this one, they did so well. Like, I feel like it's so hard for some shows to go into kind of the movie space and do it well, where it doesn't just feel like another episode. You know, like, it's kind of an impossible task of, like, it has to feel more grand than an episode, but if you, like, stray too far into the grandness, it maybe doesn't feel like the TV show at all. I feel like this one did a good job at having a big enough premise to where it feels bigger than the show, but still some of those same beats or some of those same jokes or characters that you already know and love doing the things that you know and love them for. So this one was just like a really nice break from the show that gave me like just a new appreciation for it, and then just set me up in like a nice little mindset thinking of all the fun that I had watching the movie for the later seasons of that show. Then going into October, on October 2nd, we finally finished the Hunger Games series. We watched The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2. It truly is such, like, the best and most intense way to end this series. Like, watching it with somebody who's never watched it, I was actually, like, shocked myself of how intense it was and how it, like, kind of never let you breathe. Like, through the entirety of watching this, I just looked at my friend and was like, huh, they really just never let you, like, breathe a second in this film. Once you're, like, out of one anxiety-inducing scenario, you're thrown straight into another, which I think is what this movie does very well. So I'm so glad that I got to watch this series for, like, my yearly little rewatch that I do, but then also experience it kind of for, like, the first time again, through someone else's eyes, was also such a treat. So if you have friends out there who have not watched like the Twilight series, the Divergent series, the Maze Runner, the Hunger Games, do yourself a favor and watch it with them, and I feel like you'll find a new appreciation for those films. Then, of course, the Discord movie night theme this month was Halloween-esque movies, but the thing to know about me is I do not do scary movies. You'll see if you haven't already, I have not watched one scary movie, not even remotely horror movie-esque. So it's more like Halloween, but like cozy vibes that just makes you want to like get under a little blanket as you watch the leaves fall, not I'm going to have nightmares and sleep with the lights on sort of vibes. So on October 9th, we watched the first Hotel Transylvania, and these movies came like towards the end of kind of me being the primary demographic of these movies. So I watched the first like 2 of these movies when they came out, but then after that I just really never like rewatched them. I never watched past like the second part because I've also heard they're not very good. But this first one I feel like did it very well. Like the premise is very cute. It's about like if Dracula made a safe space for all monsters to just exist based on what happened previously in his life. And like what that also means for his daughter who is now like coming of age, not 18 but 118, and like trying to keep her safe by basically just lying to her. So like we love gatekeep, gaslight, girl boss. But I feel like from what I've heard from the later parts, we maybe have lost the plot a little bit to where it's kind of getting into that like Despicable Me of like they're just doing whatever. Like I think in one of these movies they went on like a cruise. Like we maybe have lost the plot of like this is just supposed to be about the hotel and like the monsters and like their history and stuff, to maybe just like trying to make as much money, like we can all establish that. But this one, I feel like they kept to that premise pretty well of like, it's just a really cute story about a dad just trying to like look out for her daughter and her daughter trying to like gain independence in this crazy and insane world. Like, it's very relatable, it's very good, it's very cute. And then the second movie that we watched this month for the October Halloween-esque theme is the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which actually had its 50th anniversary this year, so it's very good timing that we watched it. I gave it 5 stars. I've watched this like one time, and I haven't been in person, which like we all agreed watching this as a community. We all at some point want to go together and watch it in person. But watching this movie is truly like, whether you're watching it with one friend or if you're going in person and doing the entire experience, is an experience. It is truly such a trip to watch this movie that, like, for the majority of it, you have no idea what you're watching. You really have no idea what's going on. You're just there for the ride. And I feel like that's the joy of Rocky Horror Picture Show. Like, you are just there, along for the ride, like Brad and Janet, just trying to survive. And it truly is such a magical movie. I love that this has become a cult classic. I love that the queer community has kind of adopted it and like a pillar of what it means to make queer cinema, of just like being yourself, being quirky, being silly, being goofy, like all these things. It's just such a great and entertaining experience. Now moving into November, it looks like we have a tie for the most amount of movies that I watch in one month. So in November, I watched 8 movies again, so I was really feeling the movies in November. Because on November 8th, on my own, not like for a Discord movie night or anything, I rewatched Megamind. Y'all, this movie was so funny when it first came out. I feel like it was one of the first, at least one of the first, like, bigger ones to do that, like, kind of like anti-hero comedy sort of trope. And it did it so beautifully. I feel like the only reason I gave it 4 stars is that I feel like the more that you watch it, the more it kind of loses some of that like charm of being really funny, like not really knowing what's coming next, not really knowing like some of the twists and turns that it has. But the premise, if you haven't seen it, is 2 babies who are from like 2 different planets. One is like very privileged and pristine and amazing, one that is like on the verge of destruction and not doing great things, are sent by their parents before their respective worlds are destroyed to start a new life and be like the protectors and the heroes of planet Earth. And the more privileged child becomes Metro Man, like the classic hero type who takes care of the city, who is loved by everyone, while Megamind basically grows up, basically learning that villain is the only thing that he can be, and that's okay. And so it just like really funnily explores like, what does it mean if the hero gets tired of being a hero? If the villain doesn't want to be the villain anymore, like thinks they want to be the villain? Like, it's just so well done. It's so funny. The like dry sense of humor, the puns in this movie, all of it are just amazing. I love rewatching it every single chance that I get. Then on November 13th, to prepare for Wicked for Good, I rewatched Wicked again. Really nothing to add. 10 out of 10. No notes. Take all my money. I love this movie. I will continue to love this movie. Truly, it was just to prepare me and my friend to go watch the second part of this movie. Then on November 15th, we watched The Greatest Showman as a community because the Discord theme for this month was found family, kind of going with the Thanksgiving vibes, the like grateful vibes. I thought this would be a fun little like theme to get some of that nostalgic vibes as well. I rated this 4.5 out of 5 stars. I don't think I gave it the full 5, only because of how many times I've rewatched it and because of some of like the not so great things about the people that this movie is based off of. But other than that, this movie is also so good. Like, the story, the acting, the characters are all top notch. But what really stands out about this movie are the songs. These songs from this musical are truly just amazing. Like, whether you're dancing along to some of the more upbeat songs, you're crying along to the emotional songs, your breath is being taken away by Never Enough. Like, it is an experience. It is cinema And while watching this with my community, I brought up that I feel like the songs in the movie version like sound more grand in a way because I only realized on this rewatch that they like kept in or really probably added in using like Foley sounds, like footsteps, like glasses clinking on counters. Like it's hard to explain, but they kept in all the sounds of like every action that's happening while the song is playing, but they're also still on beat. Like it's a very intentional choice. So I don't know, I felt like that was like a cool little detail that I hadn't really like picked up on consciously until this rewatch. So if you haven't watched it, go rewatch it. And then maybe pay attention for some of those like sounds that you might hear while they're doing some of their actions in it. I don't know, it just made it feel more grand in a way. Then on November 16th, I watched The Fantastic Four First Steps, which I gave 3.5 stars. I feel like similar to Thunderbolts, it was a good movie. It was a fine enough movie. It didn't really do anything wrong. It just didn't do anything exceptionally well. And I feel like that's how I feel about a lot of the superhero movies that I watched this year is like none of them did anything exceptionally bad, just none of them did anything exceptionally well. Like the story of this movie is fine, the big bad in this movie is fine, the acting in this movie is good, the characters are all decent. The kind of greater tie that you expect to the MCU of like setting up new movies or like callback to old movies is fine enough. But again, similar to like any other movie that we've watched this year in the same genre, it just didn't stick with me. I kind of forgot that I've already watched it and it was like a month ago. Then the next day on November 17th, my friend and I were lucky enough to get like an early access screening to Wicked for Good. And oh my gosh, the amount of times that I cried in that theater where me and my friend looked at each other, just absolutely sobbing or laughing or joking, and just feeling the full range of emotions was absolutely too much to handle, so I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I know a lot of people didn't like this movie at least as much as the first one, because I've done a little thing on it, because obviously, like, I'm eating up anything Wicked. I am such a fangirl for the Wicked movies and, like, the play in general, because I feel like for a lot of people, like, the first part of Wicked is so fun. It's so, like, fantasy. It's so just, like, whimsical that it's just a good time. It's a good movie-going experience for, like, the whole family and everything else. The second part is a lot more intense. It's a lot more dramatic. It's a lot more building up to what the ending is. So I feel like no blame for the people who went from like popular and what is this feeling and dancing through life to the more emotional songs and like the slower beats that the second part has. I understand why a lot of people were like, it wasn't as good or wasn't as fun, if that's the reasoning. But for me, again, I might be biased. I'm eating it all up. It's still on my Spotify. It will not go away on my Spotify for probably the next year. Then on November 22nd, I asked my community for like a holiday movie that didn't feel like a holiday movie. Because I wanted something that would like get me kind of into those Christmas vibes, get those vibes started. That wasn't one of like the classics. That wasn't like an Elf, wasn't a Home Alone, wasn't the Polar Express. I just wanted something that felt like those vibes. And so someone recommended The Last Holiday, which I've never seen, but I gave 4 stars. I really enjoyed this one. It came out in 2006. It stars Queen Latifah. The premise is still like simple enough, but kind of chaotic enough that you would kind of expect from an early 2000s holiday movie, where Queen Latifah's character gets really negative test results from the doctor that basically says that she has up until like Christmas or the New Year's to live, which is really fun news to get. So she quits her job, she gets all of her money out of the bank, and just goes on this like really extravagant trip, thinking that she only has a few weeks to live. And so it's like both this like really funny sort of as you would expect Queen Latifah movie, where she's getting into like all these shenanigans, she's doing all these like crazy activities to try to get most out of the life that she thinks she has as she can. But then what surprised me is that they also do like these really emotional beats of like what it means to live and like what is sort of the meaning of life and like how you should live it and like what are the things that are important to you versus the things that like we feel are important until we might not have that time. So I don't know, it was a very good like surprising movie that I wasn't expecting to like as much as I did. Then on the 24th, to keep with that like found family theme, we watched Up, which I gave 5 stars. This movie is so good. This movie is so wholesome. This movie is so great. This movie is so funny. I have not watched this movie in probably like 4 or 5 years. I forgot how funny this movie is. I forgot how sweet this movie is. I forgot how many characters I love in this movie. Like, I cried multiple times, and I have seen this movie probably like 4 or 5 times. Like, not even at the beginning, like 5 minutes, because we don't even need to talk about that. I cry every time I see that. Whether it's in the movie, on a TikTok, I don't care. I could see it on a billboard and it would make me cry. But even just like all the other beats of like how much he cares for Russell, how much he cares for Ellie in the house, like all these other story beats that are just so emotional and so cute. I absolutely love watching this one with my community. And then on November 28th, when I was down with some family for Thanksgiving break, I did go with them to the theater to rewatch Wicked for Good, and it hit just as hard the second time that I watched it. I did cry again multiple times throughout the watching of the second part, even though I just watched it like a week ago. And I also was, not annoyingly, sitting in my chair to myself, just mouthing the words of the song because I have listened to them so many times, even during that week, that it was also nice to just like sit and experience the movie the second time, not having to worry about like, ooh, I'm paying attention to the plot, I'm paying attention to what's going on. Like, I'm just here having a great time looking at the things that I missed the first time while trying to understand what's happening and what's going on. And then finally, we made it to December. We made it to the month that I'm filming this video in. And starting off strong, on December 6th, I watched Elf. We were in the Christmas spirit, we were in the vibes. This movie for me is one that like was the staple of my childhood. We watched it 2 or 3 times a year. We watched it like all together as a family, and then we just always watched it whenever it was on TV. Like, it is just such a good one. I can never not hear Pennies from Heaven without thinking of this song. I can't hear about fruit spray without thinking about eating the fruit spray. And every time I hear the word Christmas cheer, all I can think about is the saying, the best way to spread Christmas cheer is singing aloud for all to hear. Like, this was a staple. This made me who I am today, and I love that for it. Then, of course, the Discord movie night theme this month was Christmas movies. So on the 13th, we watched Home Alone. We had more people, I think, wanting some of those Christmas vibes. We had a lot of people show up to this one. Like, we don't even have to talk about the movie itself. We all know Home Alone by this point. We all know what Macaulay Culkin is doing in this movie. But I feel like what was more fun and what added to my score of 4.5 stars was watching this with my community and just pointing out all the plot holes in this movie. If you watch Home Alone or Home Alone 2, the amount of things that have to go wrong in this movie for no reason other than just to go wrong in this movie is really just comedic. It's laughable. Like, it was just more fun to not actually critique the movie, but more just like point out the more like fun plot holes and things that don't even make sense in this movie. That was just so much fun to watch. Speaking of other just random nonsense Christmas movies, on the 15th, I watched The Santa Claus. I don't think I've watched the first one a day in my life, if I'm gonna be honest. Because the only Santa Claus movie I remember is the one where there's like the robot Santa and he like takes over, but it's like also Tim Allen. That plot feels like a fever dream, but that's the one that I remember growing up. So I was like, okay, I don't think this is the first one, but like surely I remember the first one. I did not. I gave this movie 3 stars because, respectfully, what is this movie? I've now, after watching this, looked up like video essays on this movie, and I think everyone's in the same boat today that like this movie is crazy. The premise of this movie is absolutely insane, and for being titled The Santa Claus, there's actually not a lot of like Christmas vibes going on in the movie. Like, the majority of the movie, I understand, is about becoming Santa, so like we don't get a lot of like the actual North Pole Santa vibes. But apart from like the last 30 minutes, they're really not like in the North Pole, they're not really doing Santa things, and I feel like that's what I remember this movie being about, but it really is not. And I'm looking, and this movie did come out in 1994, so I'm fully understanding that there's different cultural contexts of when this movie came out. But this movie is absolutely crazy that like the majority of the movie is basically Tim Allen is like mentally unstable and needs like professional help because he thinks that he's Santa Claus and is kidnapping his child thinking that he's Santa Claus. Like, that's insane, and I love it. Then kind of getting out of those Christmas vibes just for a little bit this month. On the 16th, I rewatched Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. This one I think was the second time I watched it because I watched it not too long after it came out in 2023. But this one's another just like if you need a good time, if you want like a good fantasy adventure story, they did this one so well. Like the acting in it is incredible. The writing in it is so funny, it's so whimsical, it's so magical. The action is done very well. The magic in it is done very well. Like it's one that like any time that I scroll through my movies and I see this come up, it's always one that I'm like, dang it, I should watch that. Cause I just want like a good time. I want like a fun time. But I never usually do just because like I want to watch something new or I just want to watch something else. But anytime I just need like a good classic adventure fantasy movie, it's one that I want to come back to. And then finally, because I'm filming this on like the last day of the year, so within the last week, I went down to see family. And so we watched a bunch of Christmas movies. And so the first one that we watched was Home Alone 2 Lost in New York. And I rated this one 3.5 out of 5 stars. And really, I have nothing more to say than the first one. More than this movie is just like more fun to point out, like, how did this all happen? This would not happen in any sense of the word, even in the late 90s, early 2000s. This would not ever happen. But like it's just so fun and so goofy of a watch that like you can't help but have a great time. When I was down staying with my family too, I stayed with my brother and his family, and they have two little kids who are both under the age of 2 years old. So of course we also watched some kids movies when we were down there to entertain them. And one that we watched actually on Christmas was Sing, and I really forgot how good this movie is. We watched like bits and pieces throughout the week with the kids, but then we finally sat down and like fully watched it with them on Christmas, and it's such a great movie. Like again, we've established I'm a sucker for musicals, but this one hits so hard. This one I also rewatched a few times after it came out because of how much I liked it, but I haven't seen it in a few years. So I forgot how funny it is. I forgot how good a lot of the songs are. Like, we were singing along to almost every one of the songs. But then also, like, how much emotion is packed in this, like, silly little kids movie is also fantastic. So this was also just made more fun with two little kids running and screaming around the entire time. And then the day after Christmas, my sister-in-law and I were trying to find like a Christmas movie that we could watch while the kids were sleeping, and she recommended Love Hard, which is on Netflix, which I've never seen, but I've seen clips of on like TikTok or YouTube or something. And I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. It was a lot better than I thought it would be because I thought it would just be like one of those newer style, very cheesy sort of Christmas movies, and it absolutely is, but it was funnier than I was expecting it to be. Because the premise is like this girl who writes a blog about how many horrible dates she's been on finally expands her little dating profile, finds this guy like in another state who is absolutely gorgeous. He's actually on Never Have I Ever, another Netflix show. I won't spoil too much here, obviously, but like pretty quickly on, you learn that even though they've been talking for like weeks over like text and call, she then like wants to surprise him for Christmas and shows up to his house only to find out that he's been catfishing her as someone else in the town to help himself feel better about like not having someone for the holidays. It's like a pretty cheesy sort of premise, but a lot funnier again than I thought it would be. And y'all, after almost 3 hours of recording, after I don't know how long this video is, that is all 52 movies that we've watched this year. This was absolutely so fun to do. I'm so glad I made this goal for myself and trust that I will keep this goal going through at least 2026, if not more. And again, the intention of this was not to rate these movies in a super critical way and even write actual reviews in Letterboxd for these. It was more to keep track of all the movies that I've watched, think about the memories that are associated of when I watch these movies, who I watch these movies with. So it's been so rewarding to like go back and see what I've watched, see how many movies I've watched throughout the year. And whether this inspires you to track your own little movies, and if you do, please let me know, because I want to hear all about the movies that you're watching, to also maybe watch them for next year's video. Or whether you enjoyed my kind of rambly thoughts about all the movies that I watched this year. I appreciate you all watching, and I know that we'll talk so soon.